welcome back. We're moving into our first conversation for today, and we have been joined on set by Leader of the Opposition, Honorable John Brice. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, as always, and it's really a privilege actually to be here on your show. And I know that show that most Belizeans wake up to in the morning. So once again, thank you for having me over here.
Thank you for being here. Well, of course, it is a very timely conversation. I think as we are in the midst of our celebration month, in between the celebration of the 10th and moving into the Independence Day, it's a good time to hear from you within your role as Leader of the Opposition as to the number of national issues that have been ongoing and how you reflect on the country as we head into the 36th anniversary. But let's start off with what is the most pressing issue, and that would be the incident that took place at the Tower Hill Bridge last week. So first of all, I want to get your reaction to the media confrontation that took place. So let's start with that. I'm sure you've seen the footage, you've heard the stories. Let's get your reaction there.
Need I remind you I was there? I think that I think it was shameful and disgraceful in the way that that the police managed the whole situation. And whilst they were targeting us, the leaders of the party, it was obvious that they were targeting also the media. I feel that you have such a beleaguered government right now that they're trying to find any which way to try to suppress what really is happening. And I believe that's exactly what was taking place last week, Wednesday. When you see they go directly at, for instance, someone like Marisol, who was just physically and forcefully picked up and thrown like a sack of potatoes on the ground. And fortunately, one of our employees, one of our cameramen that was there out there was by Marisol, and because he was bigger, he stepped in and he got a hit from the baton in protecting Marisol. I want to put on record that it is in any thriving democracy, we must ensure that we always have a free and independent media. We cannot have a country or a government that tries to stifle the media. The media plays one of the most critical roles in a thriving democracy. Yes, when we go to the polls, we go and vote, but it is the media that day in, day out covers the news, covers the current events that are taking place, be it good or not so good or bad. Here we have now a government that is on the ropes because of the corruption issues. And that is why they have a problem with the media, because they don't like the coverage that the media is giving them. So I want to put it on record. It is absolutely disgraceful. And I haven't heard the Prime Minister go publicly and apologize to Marisol and apologize to the media for the behavior or the very forces that he controls, because at the end of the day, as the Prime Minister, he controls the police and the way with the brutal force they behaved and throwing tear gas on media personnel because they are doing an interview. It is disgraceful, it is unacceptable, and no less than an apology is demanded from the Prime Minister to the media.
Honorable Representative, do you think that it's indeed a matter of not wanting the accountability and the transparency that the media brings, why the police acted the way that they did, or it's that you feel that they aren't just aware of proper protocol in dealing with that kind of situation?
It is quite obvious that the Prime Minister wants to suppress the media. When he was the darling of the media for probably the first 5 years or more, whilst he was in government, he's always heaping praises on the media and being very chummy with the media and very happy with the coverage that the media would give them. But now that things have turned around and that the ugliness, the filth, the corruption that has been taking place under his watch is coming to the light. In many instances, because of the work that the media has so boldly done, now he does not like them. And he is no longer very friendly with them. And now his government is trying to do anything possible to try to suppress what is really taking place. So we, as the opposition, and as a citizen of this country, I am very grateful for the work that the media has been doing and continue to do, and to encourage them, or you all, because you are part of the media, that you need to continue to be vigilant, that you need to continue to be aggressive and measured in your, it needs to be balanced. But at the end of the day, Belizeans every day depend on you to get coverage of what is the current affairs that are taking place in our country.
Yeah. Now, I want to go back to what eventually unfolded at the Tower Hill Bridge. And if we were to step back to the rally that started it all, you were the one who suggested to the crowd to go to Tower Hill. Now, many have looked very critically at your decision as leader of the opposition to make that suggestion. After seeing how things unfolded, do you regret making that call at the podium?
Obviously not. And I think the people that are looking at it critically are obviously people who do not like the stance that we have taken. They do not like the stance that the people in Orange Walk North who started off this, that said that they have had enough, as we say in Spanish, basta ya, with their area representative, who they are disgusted, they are disappointed, they are ashamed of the representative Gaspar Vega and all the land scandals that continue to come out. Said, you know, they want to do a protest. And that, the Northern Caucus met with them, and from there, it mushroomed to where we are, to where we got on last week, Wednesday. But when we were out there, and people felt that we needed to make even a bigger statement. Just going to the park and standing there and you know, give you speeches and so forth was not enough. That we needed to get the attention of the Prime Minister. And one of the ways that we can get the attention of the Prime Minister is go to the Tower Hill Bridge. The Tower Hill Bridge signifies resistance for us in the North, if you notice, that whenever we want to do something, we go there. So we went there, and there is absolutely, I'm in no way believe that I have made the wrong decision that at that moment to decide, let's go, because it wasn't planned. It was just, you know, happened in the heat of the moment.
And I mean, it was very evident, and it wasn't planned. And I think one of the continuous comments that we hear is how at one point, now Prime Minister Barrow had spoken of civil unrest and how important it is, and that should be the next step. But given the tensions in the area, and I think you look at going to Tower Hill, which does have its own history with resistance and burning of tires and riots, some could have predicted that it would have reached to that point. Now I want to ask you, the police responded very quickly to the situation. In fact, the mass protesters weren't even allowed to get to that point. What is your response to how the police reacted to the protest at that time?
Well, that is the point that I wanted to make, is that the police is here to protect us and not to oppress us. And on Wednesday, that's exactly what happened. They went there to oppress, because very quickly they decided they did not read out the riot act. At no time did they say, well, you know, if you don't disperse in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 minute, we're going to throw tear gas at you. No announcement was made. I was given an interview when you see clearly the policeman kick a can or a canister of tear gas where I was. So I was engulfed by the tear gas. And then they just continued throwing tear gas all the way in people's homes, in the stores. Children were being affected. I think it was reckless on the part of the police. And I believe that rightly that they should do an investigation to make sure that they follow the proper protocol and that they're not there to hurt us. But let us not forget why we were there. We were there because of the corruption of this government. The Prime Minister has lost the moral authority to tell us anything, because coming to 2008, he made a solemn promise to this country that he was not going to tolerate not even a whiff of corruption, and he used a lot of colorful language. The point is now, all along, whenever any issue would come up to him, he would say, well, the optics look bad, and legal guilt, and factual guilt, and that kind of stupidness that he was talking about, when he knew what was taking place. Now that we have the evidence, he still refuses to act. Here we have now the former Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Natural Resources, where list after list of land that is coming out. The Prime Minister refuses to act. We wrote to the Prime Minister on the 1st of September, and we made 4 demands from him. One, we're saying that he needs to establish a commission of inquiry into the hotbed of corruption during the tenure of former Deputy Prime Minister Vega. Secondly, we said that he should instruct the Attorney General to take out a case or a claim of misfeasance against the former Deputy Prime Minister. Like millions of dollars we have lost by land after land that have been transferred either directly or indirectly through their agents to the family. Thirdly, we said he promised in 2012 that the Public Accounts Committee is going to be made, the hearings are going to be public. Now his representatives on the Public Accounts Committee voted that now the hearings on the Auditor General's report 2012-2013 is going to be closed behind closed doors. And fourth, we also are demanding that he should instruct his representatives or nominees on the Integrity Commission to reverse the decision where they're saying that we were only going to start to filing a report from 2015. Personally, and talking to different attorneys, they do not have the authority to say we are only going to give SARP 2015. They do not have the authority. We need to go all the way back to 2008. In the letter we're saying 2012, but we think we need to go back to 2008. All of us need to be able to do that. What is it that they have to hide? The Prime Minister has not responded. And why is it that we need to continue to talk about this? Because here again, this has just come to my possession. We have now another survey in the Gales Point Manatee area. See all of this seafront property? There are 11 parcels of about 6 to 7 acres each, all seafront, given to Vega family and to its nominees. We just got it, so now we're going to go and investigate to get now the actual documents when they get it and when they supposedly sell it to Vega family. But there are a few Vega families in here. And it continues, Minister refuses to act.
You know, it's so rampant. It's obvious that there's corruption in the country. I mean, it's literally right in front of our face right now. But if it's also slightly discouraging, where if you have the leader of the opposition and a whole party rallying the Prime Minister, who I would believe has the ears of the Prime Minister more so than anybody else, then how do you encourage Belizeans to be interested and to make a move or make a stance?
But the Belizeans need to be interested. It is their affairs. It is their land that is being abused in such in-your-face way. You know, and the Prime Minister again, what did he say the last time when the media met him and challenged him about the revelations? What it is what it is. It's almost like, sorry, giving you the middle finger. What are you going to do about it? But enough is enough. And there is a long list of what is going on. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Gaspar Vega is just the poster boy for corruption for the corrupt UDP government.
Now I appreciate the question that Jamie brought to light, and I want to push it a bit further. Belizeans have been hearing the reports. Belizeans have been paying attention to what has been going on and what has been revealed so far. They have paid keen attention to the responses of different persons within the government, and there just seems to be a sense of hopelessness that nothing will happen. And tied into that, this country has suffered for a long time with a deep political divide. And oftentimes, people who are recognizing that there is something wrong and something needs to be done are so fearful of making a stand, of speaking up because of political classification, partisan political classification. What do you say to people who perhaps have been listening and share the same frustration that you're vocalizing at this point, but don't want to be associated as a PUP or are fearful of victimization if they are perhaps even within public service and see what's taking place?
It has never gotten to this point where you have the Prime Minister as the chief bully in this country. That whenever you challenge a Prime Minister, then he comes and he attacks you personally, and attacks your family, and attacks your business, and tries to do any and everything to suppress you. And that is why now more than ever people are afraid, because they don't want to get into the scope of the Prime Minister, because he's going to come after them. But I am telling our Belizean people, our citizens, that we need to forget about that. Forget about PUP, forget about UDP, forget about any kind of partisan politics. What is wrong, and you need to stand up and you need to speak out. I want to put on record that we are going to ensure that these things cannot happen. They need to stop. We simply cannot continue to govern this country the way it has been done, especially since 2008. When you have ministers who were on the verge of bankruptcy and today are millionaires. Look at what the public service, the Auditor General report have said in 2012, 2018, 13. They only did a portion of the government, and they were so critical of no other than the Prime Minister himself when they said that the Ministry of Finance have not been managing the finances of this country properly. There have been no proper accounting to what has been spent. That's a damning, it's damning on the Prime Minister as the Minister of Finance. When you have the Ministry of Works, about $2 million worth of tires missing, you know, because one of the people that supplies them has overcharged in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Ministry of Works, where you have a fictitious company that supplies the Ministry of Works. When they go in the address somewhere in the Mesopotamia area, there's no such business. That company would then get an order, and then they give you an order to go and pick it up in different businesses, including Belize, and they're in no way saying that Belize is involved in them. They're just saying that this company, they give you give them an order, and then give you an order, and then you go buy it at Belize, you're going to buy it the Brice or wherever it is that you're going. They don't have nothing. It's just a scam. And the Prime Minister has been, I believe, aware of what is taking place and refuses to act. And that is why we're saying, you Prime Minister, you made a promise to this country, and you need to act. Look at the integrity, the whole investigation into immigration. You know that the teachers, stood up for, and we supported them on that. All of a sudden, in that report, all but 3 ministers were not named. All but 3. Almost all of them were involved. And now we're starting to find out the level of the corruption that was involved, and it stems right from the very top. That is where it started.
I'm glad you moved on to that issue. Yesterday, we were joined by the teachers union, and they sent out a press release yesterday calling on the Prime Minister essentially to rethink the decision to end the inquiry in November. They have said, in fact, that their strike never ended, it is on hold, and that they are paying attention. Many have felt that the Senate inquiry has not really allowed for all the information to come out to light as it should have been. We've seen very hostile witnesses be called, who refuse to answer questions, who even make a total mockery of the investigation itself. my question to you is, given the financial situation of the country, which is the reason that the Prime Minister has cited, why go further? Why continue the investigation if the witnesses who are being called are not responding?
Well, I find that comical when the Prime Minister say, because of what we're spending in the setting up of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the UNCAC, and because of the Integrity Commission, what money they're spending there? The Integrity Commission? Please, it's a joke. And if the Prime Minister claims that he can't find the money, well, just go and get the $400,000 from Anja Vega. That alone could keep us going for several months. But I want to point out that the Prime Minister does not have the authority to say, well, I want to shut you down. You can't do that, Prime Minister. That's not for you to decide. It is for the senators to decide when they believe that is going to be enough. But that whole behavior of hostile witnesses that go there and mock the senators, like some of the same ministers that are sitting in the Prime Minister's cabinet, it is happening because they have gotten the green light from the very top of the UDP. Don't worry, we are going to protect you. You don't have to say anything where you can go and mock them. Did the Prime Minister at any time chastise his ministers publicly because of the behavior in the Senate? No, he hasn't. When you see that they use the police to physically grab Julius Espat and drag him out like a criminal from the house, and yet then we have the famous yellow man, Mr. Ardinet, who physically attacked a journalist who is the mace bearer, who supposedly should be keeping law and order in the house. And it was on video, it was shown all across this country, and everyone was like, what on earth is what's going on? And the Prime Minister, they protected him. That is why these people are behaving with impunity, because they believe that the Prime Minister and his cabinet, they're going to give them the cover. But I want to put on record that the next PUP government, we are going to do a thorough investigation. We're not going to go into no witch hunt, but we are going to do a thorough investigation, and wherever there is wrongdoings, we are going to take action. And I want to make it very clear that I want to do that because this is very important, Marlene, this is very important, that there is this feeling that our government comes, our government goes, the next one comes in, well, really, we are just say, oh, they may corrupt, or we don't do nothing about it because it's going to be my turn. That has to stop. We are going to go in and we're going to do the thorough investigation, and whosoever is found guilty, they are going to face whatever charges that they have and whatever sentence that they have. It is the same government, this same government, the Prime Minister, Mr. Barrow. But remember that this is very important, I'm sorry, I know you want to say something else, but remember that they took former Minister of Lands, Marine, and the former Minister of Health, Joe Okoye, to court for misfeasance. And they went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and the Caribbean Court of Justice said that you can't take a minister to court for misfeasance in public office. So they have opened the door, and we are going to use that, and we are going to go after these corrupt ministers and we know who they are, and we're going to do a proper investigation, and they are going to be held accountable. Now, and I want them to do that to us the day that we get out from office.
Now we're in a very critical time. We are about to celebrate our 36th anniversary of our independence. And the issues that are coming to the forefront are extremely disheartening, I think, for any developing country. Where we should be progressing, we're either stagnating or regressing. But I want to say this much. The opposition plays an extremely critical role in a democracy. And while pointing out the errors and speaking or allowing for all the rhetoric as to what could potentially change under your administration is one part of your role as an opposition leader, what can you say to the people of the country to be able, beyond future promises, to be able to instigate some sort of change today? The United Democratic Party, who are currently within the administration, who are the ruling government, still have the rest of their term to complete. So we can listen to the opposition, point out the errors, complain, and promise to do differently in the future, but that's not enough.
We live in a democracy, and we have to live and abide by the Constitution. The people decided that they wanted the UDP. I think it was a bad decision to give them another term. And as such, we have to live by that. But it does not mean that we should sit idly by and see this country being taken to the road of perdition. We need to take action. We need to speak out. We need to go to the Senate. We need to go to the House and debate and point out what is going wrong in the country. We need to go to the media like with you all. Need to get investigations, taking out revelations of the corruption in government. And we then need to take to the streets if necessary. Last week was a preview where we decided, spontaneous, it was done in about 3 days that was organized, that we are going to go on march. And like that, we were meeting with the social partners. We're starting to build a closer relationship because we pretty much have the same goals. The social partners play a very critical role also in making sure that we can get the government to act. Because the government will say, oh, it's politics, or some people may see it's politics, but when we could get everybody involved, that together to speak out to what is taking place, then I believe that we can start to force the government to do some changes. If you look at how the Prime Minister has behaved, he would stand off and he would do nothing. And until the pressure builds and about to explode, then he open the pressure valve and let it go. With the teachers, for instance, he made many promises, But remember, we need to remind the Prime Minister that he promised the teachers that he was going to bring in an independent investigator into the murder of Pastor Lou, where one of his ministers is associated with one of the accused, with Danny Mason, one of his ministers, still sitting in cabinet, who we showed that there was evidence that he was in business with Danny Mason, but he's still sitting in cabinet. And what has he done about it? Absolutely nothing. He promised that he was going to open up the Public Accounts Committee and that he was going to reconfigure it so that the government does not have an outright majority. What has he done about it? Nothing. He only gives what he has to, and then he tries to continue his merry ways, like what he liked to talk about Alibaba and the 40 thieves. Well, we're seeing that has turned on him.
Now, looking at the very same 8-point agenda coming out of the teachers' strike last year, 11 days it took for the children to be out of school, for an agreement to be met. One of the areas that we saw coming out from that was the signing of the UNCAC, which the Prime Minister did sign in December.
Finally, which I challenged him to sign from before during the budget debate. Now,
since the signing of the UNCAC, and I think a lot of people really felt this was going to be a panacea for all corruption issues that we continue to hear about. But that's not the case. That's not how the convention works. I want to ask what has been the opposition's role in advocating for future steps for us to roll out into education campaigns, as a country, to roll out into education campaigns and to put the UNCAC to use. There are legislative changes that have to be made. I understand there was a consultant who was talking to stakeholders, but what has been the role of the opposition in advocating for the rollout?
Well, we have been participating, and we have a young lawyer, Leslie Mendez, who is an advocate, she is very into human rights issues and strongly believes in the issue of getting rid of corruption, ridding corruption out of governments. So she has been actively participating. We are prepared, as I said to the government when it was presented, that we are prepared to support it, all the necessary steps to make sure that it works. But it is more than just the UNCAC. The UNCAC is not the panacea, as you said. It requires a number of issues For instance, the issue of curbing the unbridled powers of ministers. You know, a minister can rightly so take a piece of land that costs 100,000 and can sell it for $1. Can't give it away, but you could sell it for $1. That has to stop. And in effect, we have to protect the minister from him or herself, because with these unbridled powers, they are also politicians and their supporters come and ask for help, and then so you have to help them, and then they realize that hold on, they can make a lot of money because of the powers that they have. So we need to do that. Secondly, I think we really need to make sure that ministers understand that if you, and the UNCAC can help with that, that if you step out of line and if you break the law, you're going to be held accountable. So these are just but the few things. The Auditor General has to have a bigger staff and a bigger budget. Look at this. This is very important. Look at this. A small business that is you turning over $1 million has to get an auditor to audit its book. Here we have a government that is turning over $1 billion and we don't have auditors. We need to make sure that every department in government is audited every year. That is why we have these abuses, because both the ministers and the public officers realize that they are checked me. But if they know that they are being checked year in and year out, that trust me that they're going to handle our monies better. How can a government or a department not balance a checkbook? You have to balance your checkbook. Jimmy, you have to balance your checkbook every month. Because it don't work like that. But yet here we have these ministries spending millions of dollars and they can't balance in checkbook. Hold on, please. That is simply unacceptable.
Well, this is part of the reason why the Integrity Commission is established within the laws. This is why declaring assets is important. And you used one example of somebody who could be on the brink of bankruptcy and then suddenly having very lucrative side businesses. Now, I think what we have heard so far in being able to establish the current threshold, which is moving from 2015 forward, is, as you pointed out, it is not the ideal situation, and the PUP is
it's requesting, an acceptable period.
The PUP is currently demanding that it goes back to at least 2012, your preference is 2008. Now, while it has been required by law that public officials declare their assets, it has never been something that has been adhered to, even when you or your party was in power. So for people looking on, it seems very convenient that now that the opposite party is in power, that you want them to declare their assets. You have said that you're committed, that if you are to take over the reins of government, that you will maintain that all your ministers will do the same. How do you convince the public that this is not just about going after the UDP, that this is a genuine commitment that was never adhered to before, that will be implemented from this point forward?
Remember that in 2007, we took out, we amended the act, and what we did in that act, we gave it more teeth. We made it more far-reaching because we felt that it really has to. We really can't continue to manage the way we have been managing the resources of this country. But right after that, we lost the election, so the actual implementation did not. We didn't have the opportunity to actually start implementation. So the real implementation of this new act that really gives teeth to the Integrity Commission has been solely in the hands of the Prime Minister, of the Right Honourable Prime Minister Dean Barrow. And for years, he did nothing about it. He can't find an accountant, and he can't find this, and can't this, and this, and nothing got done until there was this, until when they had the demonstration by the teachers. And even then, if you remember, the Prime Minister did not act. The Prime Minister then finally acted when he realized now that the entire country was going to join the teachers. We had a demonstration with over 6,000 people. The chamber then voted at that same time that they were going to shut down businesses. That is when the Prime Minister, that is the only time the Prime Minister, that's the only language that this Prime Minister understands. The point I'm making is that with these changes, you have the power to do so, but there are certain fundamental changes that we need to make. For instance, in the Integrity Commission, we can't allow the government to have the majority to control, because then obviously they are going to probably, the Prime Minister say, well, they're not there as UDP, but they are going to look after their own interests, and that's what they're doing right now, because they did vote that they wanted reports up to 2012, and as I understand, the cabinet revolted, and then they pretty much then all of a sudden, we all know that Marilyn Williams ran for the UDP. Marilyn Williams is a very, very close friend of the Prime Minister. Marilyn Williams is a big UDP as anybody else, and pretty much because they control the majority, reverse that decision. So we need to be able to, in certain key areas, we need to remove the control from the government. For instance, the Public Accounts Committee is one of them. The Integrity Commission is another one. Thirdly, to curb the unbridled powers of ministers is another one. Fourthly, the Auditor General, strengthening them, giving them their budget, an independent budget, so that they can come in and do timely audits. These are the steps that we have to take. Mm-hmm. The only way you can curb corruption is with light. Whenever you know that they're going to know what you're doing, you are going to be more careful. It is the people's money. So what do you have to hide? It's not your money. So we need to make sure that everything is laid on the table. Mm-hmm. And by taking these steps, this is how we're going to be able to change. And the public service ministers are saying, the public servants, there are really a lot of very, very good public officers. But within those thousands, you have a number of them that are very corrupt. Mm-hmm. And we need to get them out of the system. Mm-hmm. But many of them are there because then they are close to the minister. And they enable the minister to do whatever it is that they're doing. We need to get rid of those bad public officers. We need to give the independence back to the public office, to the public service, so that they can truly run properly the affairs of the country.
Honorable Senior, for me, there is a key word that you said that keeps ringing in my head, the word of fundamental, because I know it's important for us to talk about issues that are affecting us today, that are rampant corruption, fraud, extortion, all of these things that are happening in our government. But I think the reason why we feel so helpless and why we feel like we have no control as a Belizean people is because politics doesn't feel like it's for us. It doesn't feel like it's for the people. You talk about the fundamental change in government, fundamental change in the public service. That's been said, it's been tried, I don't think it's been promised. It's been promised. That's the word. It's been promised. And it's not happening. And I think it's because we as a people, we don't understand the power we have as a democracy to engage in politics. And I don't think that there is anything wrong in engaging in politics, because politics is a part of our governance. Yes. It's a part of why we're free people living in Belize, why we celebrate the 21st and the 10th and all of these things. I think it's the systemic evils of partisanship and the systemic evils of cronyism and nepotism that keep our country suppressed the way that it is. So when you talk about fundamental changes, how do you shift that mentality where we're stuck in either PUP or either UDP or I want whoever minister help me, I want support? How do you change that mentality so that it shifts not only in the public, in the level of policy and things like that, but on the ground where you have millennials and young people wanting to be engaged exactly, and to be political leaders and to aspire to actually have experience and tacit and other in politics and governance.
It's not going to be easy. Because we have created a culture of dependency. And no more than ever, You have no more than ever this culture of dependency where the government actually uses our tax dollars for Christmas cheer, Mother's Day care, for other kind of chairs and that kind of stuff, which is, I believe, an abuse of the taxpayers' resources. And where, because of this power that the politicians have when they get to Bamapan, that you believe that, I better be nice to the minister else nothing is going to happen to me. We need to change that. And I am not going to stand here or sit here with you and tell you from day one I get in there it's going to change. It is going to take some time, it's going to take some work, but it has to start from you, from within you. You as a citizen and you as a politician, that we have to make changes and that we have to accept that we cannot continue to run the country the way it has been managed, and that we have so much potential in this country. And it's only 365,000 of us. There's no reason why 42% of us should be so poor when we have so much resources. If we could only do the right things. And one is manage the proper resources, come up with the proper plans, how we're going to grow the economy. Look at fuel right now. It is at $10.99 and the government is already telling you, well, it's going to go up. How we have to go up? Bring down the tax. About 50% of the fuel goes to tax. And everybody depends on fuel. And we don't see the ministers tightening up their belt to say, okay, well, see how we could cut, how we could more effectively manage the resources of this government. We need to be able to work with the private sector to make sure that this country can thrive. All the grain that we grow, we could export. All the cattle that we have, we could export. And the pigs and the sheep, there's so much that we can do, but there's not the political will, or they don't have the people with the vision to get this thing done, because they're just busy trying to fill up their pockets. We don't have to go all the way to Japan to sell free products. We have Mexico right next to us. The Mexicans are begging us to sign a partial scope agreement with them, and we do nothing for years. We don't even have to go to Mexico City. We need to sell into Quintana Roo. We have over 6 million people visiting that state every year in tourism, and they need the vegetables, they need the grains, they need the meat. They have so many things that we can sell them because we're so close to them. But we lose that opportunity, and that is what frustrates me.
But this is what I'm talking about. You have all this information and it goes into the government. It goes into the hands of public servants. I think what needs to change is that the public needs to be more aware of what's happening. Who wants to come into Belize? Who wants to get our goods and give us money for the goods that we can provide to them? And I think it's stuck on a desk and in somebody's office who
because there's
care.
Not the political will and there's not the political direction. I have spoken to diplomats in this country where they're telling you it takes them months to have a meeting with a minister because they do not make themselves available. They don't work. That's the problem. I remember when I was Deputy Prime Minister of Resources, many times I used to work till midnight. Not even work in my business as hard as I did. But we used to work. And despite what they have accused us, and yes, in many instances it was well deserved, but we managed to get this economy to grow. We doubled the economy. We had over 15,000 new homes, 15,000 new new jobs. We invested in infrastructure. So much was done, and we were improving. But here we have a government that have no vision, have no direction, and they have no work ethic to get it done.
Now, we are quickly running out of time, and I need to ask you one final question, and that is looking at the municipal elections that are coming up. We've not seen a slate for Belize City as yet. Honorable Brice, tell us how it's going for your political machinery heading into the election.
Well, we finished the last one is San Pedro, which we had the convention last week. And now we come to Belize City. Presently, Honorable Cordell Hyde, he has been tasked in putting together a good team. We have more than enough candidates. It's not that. But we want to make sure that we have the right team. We believe that before the end of the month, that we should have the right team. But we do have candidates. We have good candidates. But the UDP has taken Belize for granted for too long. And obviously, and you've seen the UDP, the amount of, I think the last time I checked, it was about $225 million that central government has pumped into Belize City, because this is where they live. So they believe that they have a slam dunk in Belize City. I don't think so, because I've been walking the streets of Belize City, and a lot of these streets already are breaking up, washway. People house whatever, so to flood, now they flood because there were no drains. So there is a lot of issues that are affecting. We have a $42 million basketball stadium. When people, you should see the shacks that they are living in, that we could have done something to improve their standard of living. You know, these are the basic issues that the government, they tell you, I always say, it's a man that dress up pretty clothes, but hungry. And that's exactly what is happening also in Belize City. It look pretty in certain areas, because the rest of the city is in a deplorable state. But we're hungry. We don't have a job. We house, they fall down. We can't send the children to school. Or when they go to school hungry. These are the basic human elements that needs to be addressed that this government is forgetting. And people are seeing this, and they feel that the government has taken them for a ride. They feel that they did these projects, yes, because they want to make the place look pretty, but because their cronies are getting fat off the tax dollars. All of these $450 million have been spent from Petro-Caribe. And we don't know how their people getting our contracts. We don't know how it was bid. We don't know if they lived up to the contract. We're seeing the quality of the workmanship. The Northern Highway that passes through Range Town, that they had to fix. It's sinking in certain areas, it's breaking up. And this is what is angering the people. And here in Belize City, I can assure you, Marlene and Jimmy, that we're working on getting a good team.
So when will we see
that
the
hopefully
slate?
both of you will be able to support.
So when will we see the slate?
You never answer my question, but
When will we see the slate?
We should get it. We have a National Party Council meeting at the end of the month, and we expect that we can present the entire all 9 slates for all 9 municipalities by the end of the month. But we do have candidates.
Okay. Well, we are completely out of time. We thank you for sitting in, having this conversation before the celebration of our independence Day. And we know you'll have your speech there as well, so we'll hear more from you. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you to both of you. And let me take the opportunity to wish everyone a happy 21st. When I get there, it's a difficult time, but we still need to celebrate. It's still our country. It's a country that all of us love. Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking about an upcoming forum on security threats at home and abroad, so stay tuned.